husband said the bruise on my cheek was my fault for pushing his buttons, but the day I escaped proved the only thing I provoked was his fear of losing control. It started small. A raised voice. A slammed door. Then came the jokes about my cooking, my weight, how I couldn't do anything right. His friends would laugh while I stood there smiling, pretending it was all in good fun. The first time he grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks, he bought me roses. The second time, he cried and swore it would never happen again. By the 10th time, he'd stopped apologizing altogether. "You know how to set me off," he'd say. Like my existence was a deliberate provocation. I started wearing long sleeves in summer, covering bruises with makeup, lying to my sister about why I couldn't meet for lunch. My mother called less and less, tired of my excuses. I learned which topics were safe, which tone of voice wouldn't trigger him, how to predict his moods by the way he walked through the door. Then came the night he put his hands around my throat. I remember the ceiling fan spinning above me, the sound of my own gasping, the way the room started going dark. He let go just before I passed out. "Look what you made me do," he whispered. That's when I knew I had to leave or die. I waited 3 days, planning every detail. I couldn't just run. He had my phone tracked, controlled our bank account, knew everyone I knew. I told him I was going to the pharmacy for his stomach medication. Instead, I drove to the police station and filed a report. The officer photographed my bruises, my broken rib from last month, the finger marks visible on my neck, then to the bank for the ATM maximum, then to my sister's house where I'd mailed a box of important documents weeks earlier. Birth certificate, social security card, the photos I'd secretly taken of my injuries. My sister opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside. "Finally" was all she said. We worked very fast, changed my number, deleted my social media. Her husband installed new locks and a security camera. By midnight, I had a restraining order. By morning, I was in a women's shelter 2 counties away. Devin showed up at my sister's house 6 times that first week. Each time, the police turned him away. Each violation went into a file that kept growing thicker. He called from different numbers, sent emails from fake accounts, showed up at places he thought I might be. The shelter counselor said this was normal. They can't stand losing control. I stayed 4 weeks, attending support groups, meeting women with stories like mine. I learned that none of it was my fault, that love shouldn't hurt, things I'd stopped believing. Then came the certified letter. Devin was suing me for abandonment of marital assets and emotional distress. My lawyer read it and actually laughed. "He's claiming you traumatized him by leaving?" The court date arrived fast. I sat in that courtroom watching Devin play the victim. He told the judge I was unstable, that I'd exaggerated everything, that the bruises were from my own clumsiness. He cried real tears about how much he loved me. Then my lawyer presented all the evidence. 47 photographs spanning 18 months. Medical records from 3 ER visits I'd hidden from him. Text messages where he'd threatened to kill me if I ever left. Police reports from his restraining order violations. Testimony from my sister, my former co-worker, our neighbor who'd called 911 twice after hearing me scream. The judge's expression changed with each piece of evidence. He looked directly at Devin. "Sir, this court recognizes manipulation when it sees it. Your petition is denied." I walked out feeling like I could breathe for the first time in years. But as I reached my sister's car, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. A photo of me leaving the courthouse, taken from across the street moments ago. The caption read, "Did you really think a piece of paper would stop me?" I turned around. Devin stood there, 50 feet away, smiling. He raised his hand and waved at me. My sister grabbed my arm. "Get in the car. Now." I couldn't move. My legs had turned to cement. Devin started walking toward us, still smiling, that smile I knew too well, the one that meant he'd already won in his mind. I said, "Get in," my sister hissed, pulling me toward the passenger door. Her husband appeared from nowhere, stepping between us and Devin. "You need to leave. The restraining order is still in effect." "I'm on a public street," Devin called out, his voice friendly, reasonable, like we were old friends catching up. "Just wanted to congratulate my wife on her performance in there." Very convincing. 2 security guards from the courthouse emerged. One spoke into his radio while the other approached Devin. "Sir, you need to move along." Devin held up his hands in mock surrender, still smiling. But his eyes found mine one last time. "See you soon," he mouthed. We drove in silence for 20 minutes before my sister finally spoke. "You can't stay at my place anymore. He knows where I live." "I know. Mom and Dad's is out too. He knows that address." I nodded. I'd already accepted I'd have to disappear completely. Start over somewhere he'd never think to look. That night, I stayed in a motel under my sister's name. She paid cash. We didn't turn on any lights. At 2 in the morning, someone knocked on the door. 3 soft taps. Then silence. Then 3 more taps. My sister and I sat frozen on the bed, not breathing. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. "I can hear you breathing in there." We called 911. By the time police arrived, whoever it was had gone. No cameras in the parking lot. No witnesses. The officer took a report and suggested we move to a different location. At dawn, my sister drove me to a bus station 3 towns over. She'd withdrawn $2,000 from her savings. "Go somewhere random. Somewhere you've never talked about. Don't tell me where. I can't know. What if he goes after you? He wants you, not me. Just go." I bought a ticket to the first city I saw on the departure board, Harrisburg. I'd never been to Pennsylvania. Didn't know anyone there. It seemed as good a place as any to stop existing. The bus ride took 11 hours. I kept my head down, Wore a baseball cap my sister had given me. Didn't talk to anyone. Every time someone walked past my seat, my heart raced. In Harrisburg, I found a women's shelter through a local church. They asked few questions, gave me a bed, some donated clothes, and information about job placement services. For 3 days, I barely left my room. I jumped at every sound, checked the locks compulsively, scanned every face on the street. On the 4th day, the shelter director knocked on my door. "There's a man asking about you at the front desk." My blood went cold. What did he look like? Tall, brown hair, nice suit. Said he was your husband and he was worried about you. What did you tell him? Nothing. We don't give out information about our residents. But he seemed very convincing, very concerned. If I didn't know better, I'd have believed him. That's what he does. He makes you believe him. She nodded slowly. We have a safe house. It's not here. Different location, very discreet. You'd be with 2 other women. No one knows the address except myself and the board director. Would you like me to arrange a transfer? 3 hours later, I was in the back of an unmarked van, watching the city disappear through a small window. The safe house turned out to be a renovated farmhouse 40 minutes outside the city. 2 other women lived there, Paige, who'd been there 4 months, and Violet, who'd arrived 2 weeks earlier. Neither asked my name at first. That's how it worked there. You shared when you were ready. Paige cooked dinner that first night. Spaghetti with store-brand sauce. It tasted like freedom. We ate in silence. Then Violet did the dishes while I dried. Normal things felt revolutionary. He'll find this place eventually, Paige said suddenly. They always do. My ex found me twice before I ended up here. How did he find you? First time he tracked my cousin's car. I'd gotten a ride from her. He followed her home, waited until she left, then went through her trash. Found an envelope with the shelter address. Second time, I made the mistake of using my debit card at a gas station. He'd put alerts on all my accounts. He was waiting in the parking lot when I came out. What did you do? Ran. Left everything. The car, my purse, everything. A trucker saw what was happening and let me hide in his cab. Drove me 3 states away. You still think this place isn't safe? She looked at me with tired eyes. Nowhere is safe. Not really. But this is better than most. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. I started to breathe a little easier. I got a job at a local diner, working the early morning shift. Cash tips, no paperwork. The owner didn't ask questions. Half her staff were people running from something. I sent 1 anonymous postcard to my sister. Just 3 words. I'm okay. Mailed it from 2 towns over, no return address. Then came the night I worked a double shift. I got home to the farmhouse at 11, exhausted, my feet aching. The front door was unlocked. We never left the front door unlocked. I stood on the porch, my hand on the doorknob, listening. Silence. I should have run, should have called the police. Instead, I pushed the door open. The living room was empty. Everything looked normal. Then I saw it. A single rose on the coffee table. Red, perfect. Just starting to bloom. My legs gave out. I sat down hard on the floor. Violet found me there 20 minutes later. What happened? Are you okay? I pointed at the rose. Maybe Paige bought it? But her voice was uncertain. Where is Paige? She went to visit her sister for the weekend. Left this morning. We searched the house. Nothing else was disturbed. No signs of forced entry. All the windows locked from the inside. Just the rose. I called the safe house director. She arrived within an hour, pale and shaken. No one should know this address. No one. I'm going to have to move both of you. He's playing with me, I said. He wants me to know he can find me anywhere. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with all the lights on, a kitchen knife in my lap. Violet sat up with me. We didn't talk, just waited for morning. The director moved us the next day. Different house, different county. This one was smaller, just me and Violet. We had a panic room, a converted closet with reinforced walls and a separate phone line. The director showed us how to use it. If anything happens, you get in here and call 911. You don't come out until police arrive. Understood? I lasted 5 days before I saw Devin again. I was walking home from the diner, my usual route, when a car slowed beside me. Black sedan, tinted windows. It kept pace with me for half a block. Then the passenger window rolled down. Devin leaned across from the driver's seat. Get in the car. I ran. I was 3 blocks from the house. I'd never run faster in my life. Behind me, I heard the car door slam, footsteps pounding pavement. You can't run forever, he shouted. His voice was getting closer. I cut through someone's backyard, jumped a fence, my lungs burning. I could see the house. Almost there. My fingers fumbled with my keys as I reached the door. His hand grabbed my shoulder, spinning me around. He slammed me against the door, his face inches from mine. Did you really think I wouldn't find you? How? I gasped. How did you? You think you're the only one with resources? I hired 3 private investigators, paid them each $10,000, told them whoever found you first got a bonus. Took them a week. He smiled. Your sister's not as careful as she thinks. She drove to a specific bus station at dawn. From there, it was easy. Let me go. Not a chance. You're coming home. Now. The front door opened behind me. Violet stood there with a baseball bat. Step back. Right now. Devin looked at her, then at me, then back at her. He was calculating. I could see him weighing his options. This doesn't concern you, he said calmly. I've already called the police. They'll be here in 3 minutes. He released me so suddenly I almost fell. Fine. Enjoy your little hideout. But remember, I found you once. I'll find you again. And again. and again, until you stop running. He walked back to his car, got in, and drove away slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Violet pulled me inside and locked the door. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't hold the phone when she tried to hand it to me. We need to call the director. You can't stay here anymore. Where am I supposed to go? He just proved nowhere is safe. Then we changed the game. What do you mean? She sat down across from me. I've been running for 2 years. My ex has found me 4 times. Each time I run again. Start over. New name, new city, new life. But I'm tired of running. I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. I'm tired of giving him this power over me. So what do you do instead? You stop hiding. You document everything. You build a case so airtight he can't breathe without violating it. You make yourself into someone who can't disappear quietly. That night I started recording everything. Every encounter, every threat, every violation. I bought a small camera that I wore as a necklace. Audio recording app on my phone, set to back up to the cloud automatically. I sent copies of everything to 3 different email addresses under fake names. The director moved me again. This time to a studio apartment in a complex specifically for domestic violence survivors. Security cameras everywhere. Controlled access. A guard at the front desk 24 hours a day. I changed my appearance. Cut my hair short. Dyed it dark. Started wearing glasses with plain lenses. Got a job at a grocery store under a different name. Rebuilt my life one careful piece at a time. For 3 months, I didn't see Devin. I started to believe maybe I'd actually escaped. Then I came home from work to find my apartment door cracked open. I stood in the hallway, my hand on my phone, finger hovering over 911. You can come in? Devin's voice called from inside. I'm not here to hurt you, I just want to talk. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. I'll be gone before they arrive. But you'll never know what I came to say. I pressed record on my phone audio app and pushed the door open. Devin sat on my couch looking completely at ease, like he owned the place. How did you get in? Your neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. Lovely woman. I told her I was your husband and I wanted to surprise you with flowers. She let me borrow her key. He gestured to a vase on my counter. More red roses. See? I even brought flowers. Get out. I filed for divorce. Papers should arrive any day now. He stood up, smoothing his suit jacket. I'm willing to split everything 50-50. The house, the cars, the savings. All you have to do is sign. Why? Because I'm tired too. Tired of chasing you. Tired of this game. I'm ready to move on. Find someone who actually appreciates what I have to offer. I didn't believe him. Not for a second. You broke into my apartment to tell me you want a divorce? I broke in to see if you were still worth the effort. He walked toward me slowly. I backed up until I hit the wall. He stopped inches away. Verdict? You're not. You're broken. Used up. Not worth my time. He walked out without another word. I stood there shaking, my phone still recording. Then I called the police, filed another report, added it to my growing file. The divorce papers arrived 3 days later. I read through them with my lawyer. This is too easy, she said. He's giving you everything. The house, both cars, 3/4 of the savings. This isn't normal. What's the catch? She flipped through pages. Here, clause 17. You agree not to pursue any criminal charges related to events during the marriage. You agree not to discuss the marriage publicly or with law enforcement. Basically, he buys your silence. I don't sign that. I didn't think you would. We counter-offered. I take half of everything, but I reserve the right to cooperate with any criminal investigation. Devin's lawyer called my lawyer screaming. Apparently, I was being unreasonable. 2 days later, I woke up to find all 4 tires on my car slashed, a note under the windshield wiper. Sign the papers. I signed nothing. Instead, I filed another police report, added the note to my evidence file, started parking in a different location every night. Devin's tactics escalated. Someone broke into the grocery store and destroyed all the security footage from the past month. My manager found a typed note. Fire her or this place burns down. He didn't fire me, but he asked if maybe I'd be willing to transfer to a different location. I transferred. Started over again. New apartment, new job, new routine. Then my sister called, her voice strange. You need to come home. It's Dad. What happened? Heart attack. He's in ICU. They don't know if he'll make it. I couldn't breathe. When? This morning. Mom's with him now. I can't come home. You know I can't. He's dying. Her voice broke. He's asking for you. I drove through the night, breaking every speed limit, arrived at the hospital at dawn, wearing a hoodie pulled low, sunglasses even though it was dark. I kept my head down walking through the parking lot. Dad was unconscious, tubes and wires everywhere. Mom sat beside his bed, looking 10 years older than when I'd last seen her. She stood when I walked in, pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. This isn't your fault, but it felt like my fault. Everything felt like my fault. I'd brought chaos into their lives, made them accessories to my escape. I sat with Dad for an hour, holding his hand, telling him about my new life. The parts I could share anyway. The job I liked, the apartment with good light, the feeling of starting over. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. That particular rhythm I'd know anywhere. I looked up. Devin stood in the doorway with a bouquet of flowers. I heard about your father, he said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. I wanted to pay my respects. Mom stood up. Get out. I have every right to be here. This is a public hospital. I'll call security. Go ahead. He stepped into the room, set the flowers on the windowsill. His eyes never left mine. I'm just here to support my wife in her time of need. A nurse appeared behind him. Sir? Family only in ICU rooms. I am family. That's my wife. Ex-wife, I corrected. Not yet. You haven't signed the papers. Security arrived, 2 large men who escorted Devin out, but the damage was done. He'd proven his point. Nowhere was safe. Not even my father's deathbed. I left before dawn the next morning. Couldn't risk staying longer. Dad died 3 days later without me there. I listened to the funeral on speakerphone hidden in my apartment while Violet held my hand. Mom called me after. He was there. At the funeral. Devin. He brought flowers. Gave a speech about what a wonderful man your father was. People actually thanked him. That's when something inside me broke. Or maybe it was already broken, and I just finally noticed. I called my lawyer. I want to file charges. Everything. Every assault, every threat, every violation. I have proof. I have recordings. I have witnesses. I want him prosecuted for everything. That's a criminal case. I do family law. Then find me someone who does criminal law. She found me Ramona Chen, a prosecutor who specialized in domestic violence cases. I sat in Ramona's office for 4 hours, showing her everything. Photos, recordings, police reports, medical records. She listened without interrupting, taking notes, her expression getting darker with each piece of evidence. This is substantial, she finally said. Very substantial. I can bring charges, multiple felonies, assault, stalking, harassment, breaking and entering, violation of protective orders. He's looking at serious prison time if convicted. If he has money. Money means good lawyers. Good lawyers mean fighting every piece of evidence, every technicality. This won't be easy. I don't care. I want him stopped. The charges were filed 2 weeks later. 6 felony counts, 8 misdemeanors. Bail was set at $500,000. Devin posted it in an hour. My lawyer called me that afternoon. He's out, and he's already filed a motion to dismiss all charges, claiming you fabricated everything to gain advantage in the divorce. That's insane. I have proof. His lawyers are very good. They're claiming you doctored the recordings, that the photos are from unrelated incidents, that you're mentally unstable. They have 3 psychiatrists ready to testify about your supposed delusions. This can't be happening. It gets worse. He's countersuing. Civil suit for defamation, emotional distress, and damage to his reputation. He's asking for $3 million. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because what else could I do? I don't have $3 million. He knows that. He wants to destroy you financially even if he loses the criminal case. The trial was set for 6 months out. 6 months of waiting, knowing he was out there, knowing he was watching. I moved again. This time to a city 4 hours away. Got a job washing dishes at a restaurant. Lived in a tiny room above a laundromat. Ramona prepped me for testimony. We spent hours going through every detail, every question his lawyers might ask. They're going to try to break you on the stand. They'll bring up every mistake you ever made, every lie you ever told, every reason anyone might doubt you. You need to stay calm, stay consistent. Don't let them see you crack. What if I do crack? Then we lose. The trial started on a Tuesday in March. The courthouse was packed. Apparently, Devin had hired a PR firm. Local news was there. Reporters with cameras and microphones. He'd spun this as a story of a vindictive ex-wife trying to destroy a successful businessman. I walked into that courtroom wearing a donated suit that didn't quite fit, my short dark hair slicked back, trying to look like someone worth believing. Devin sat at the defense table in a $1,000 suit, looking like a model citizen. He even smiled at me. Friendly, warm, like we were old friends. The prosecution presented their case first. Ramona was methodical, building layer upon layer of evidence. Photos of my injuries, matched with police reports from those exact dates. Medical records. Testimony from my sister, from the shelter director, from 3 different police officers who'd responded to calls. Then she played the recordings. My voice, shaky and terrified. Devin's voice, cold and menacing. The jury listened in silence. Did you really think a piece of paper would stop me? You can't run forever. I'll find you again. And again. And again. His lawyer objected constantly, called the recordings inadmissible, claimed they lacked context, argued the timestamps were unreliable. The judge overruled most objections, but sustained enough to make me nervous. When it was the defense's turn, Devin's lawyer painted me as an unstable woman with a history of mental health issues. They brought in my high school guidance counselor, who testified I'd seen her for depression at age 16, a doctor I'd seen for anxiety in college, my former boss from a job I'd quit after 2 weeks because I couldn't handle the stress. She has a pattern of instability, the defense lawyer told the jury, a pattern of running from responsibility, of blaming others for her problems. When her marriage became difficult, instead of working on it like a mature adult, she fabricated this elaborate story of abuse to avoid accountability. Then Devin took the stand. He was perfect, composed, sincere, just the right amount of hurt. He talked about how much he'd loved me, how he'd tried to help me with my issues, how devastated he was when I left. Did you ever hit her? His lawyer asked. Never. Not once. Did you threaten her? Never intentionally. Sometimes I'd get frustrated with her accusations and say things in the heat of the moment, but I never meant any harm. What about the recordings we heard? Taken out of context. Edited to make me sound worse than I am. She's very clever. She knew exactly how to manipulate the situation to her advantage. I watched the jury. Half of them were nodding. Then it was Ramona's turn to cross-examine. Mr. Devon, you said you never hit your wife. Is that correct? That's correct. So these medical records showing she had a broken rib are fabricated? I don't know how she broke her rib. Maybe she fell. She's quite clumsy. And the finger marks on her neck? From the night she claims you choked her? I never choked her. Those marks could be from anything. Such as? Maybe she did it herself. To frame me. Ramona paused, looking at him with something like pity. You really expect this jury to believe that a woman choked herself hard enough to leave bruises, broke her own rib, gave herself black eyes and split lips, all to frame you? People do crazy things when they want out of a marriage. How did you find her at the safe house? The one whose address is supposed to be confidential? I didn't. I never found any safe house. Then how do you explain the rose she found on the coffee table? Maybe one of the other residents put it there. Maybe she put it there herself to add to her story. And the note under her windshield wiper telling her to sign the divorce papers? Anyone could have written that. In your handwriting? I didn't write any note. Ramona pulled out an envelope. Is this your handwriting on this envelope? Addressed to your former business partner? Devon looked at it. Yes, that's mine. And would you say the handwriting matches the note found under the windshield wiper? His lawyer objected. Handwriting analysis wasn't admissible without an expert. The judge sustained. But the seed was planted. The jury had seen both samples. Ramona continued for 2 more hours, dismantling every claim he made, pointing out every contradiction. By the end, sweat was visible on Devon's forehead. Then it was my turn to testify. I'd been dreading this moment for months. Walking up to that stand, raising my right hand, swearing to tell the truth, the entire courtroom watching me, Ramona took me through my story chronologically. The first incident, the escalation, the night he choked me, my escape, every time he found me, the terror of always looking over my shoulder. Why didn't you just sign the divorce papers, she asked. He was offering you a generous settlement, because it required me to promise never to speak about what he did to me. To pretend it never happened. I couldn't do that. I couldn't let him get away with it. Then came cross-examination. Devon's lawyer was a woman named Patricia Hartford. Expensive suit, shark eyes, a smile that never reached them. She approached me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. You say my client abused you, but you never called the police during the marriage, did you? No. Why not? I was afraid. Afraid of what he'd do if I called. Or afraid they wouldn't believe you because nothing was actually happening. No, You have a history of depression, anxiety, and what your college doctor called catastrophic thinking, correct? I had some mental health struggles, yes. That doesn't mean... It means you have a documented history of exaggerating situations and seeing danger where none exists. That's not what catastrophic thinking means. You quit your job just 2 weeks after starting because you claimed the stress was too much, correct? The boss was inappropriate. He made comments. Did you file a complaint about these alleged comments? No. So we only have your word that they happened at all. Just like we only have your word that my client abused you. I have proof. The photos, the recordings, photos that could have been taken at any time, for any reason. Recordings that conveniently only show one side of conversations. Where's the context? Where's the evidence that you didn't provoke these incidents? Nothing I did justifies what he did to me. That's convenient. It's always someone else's fault, isn't it? Your boss was inappropriate, so you quit. Your husband frustrated you, so you created this story. The guidance counselor, the doctor, your former employer, they all saw patterns of instability. But you expect this jury to believe you're suddenly credible? I looked at the jury. Some were frowning. Some looked skeptical. I was losing them. I'm telling the truth, I said quietly. Everything I've said is the truth. He hurt me. He terrorized me. He made me feel like I was losing my mind. And when I finally escaped, he couldn't stand losing control. So he hunted me down again and again and again. Or you couldn't handle the failure of your marriage, so you invented a villain to blame it on. He's not invented. He's sitting right there. Patricia smiled. No further questions. The trial lasted 3 weeks total. 21 days of testimony, evidence, expert witnesses, character witnesses. Ramona called the shelter director, who testified about the roses in the safe house. She called the guard from my apartment complex, who confirmed Devon had been there multiple times despite the restraining order. She called my sister, who described finding me on her doorstep with a bruised face and broken ribs. The defense called Devon's friends, his business partners, his parents. All of them swore he was a good man, incapable of violence. They painted me as the problem, the unstable wife who ruined their friend's life with false accusations. On the final day, both sides gave their closing arguments. Patricia Hartford spoke first. She was eloquent, persuasive, painting Devon as a victim of a vindictive woman's campaign of destruction. Look at the facts, she told the jury. Look at the evidence or lack thereof. We have a woman with documented mental health issues making claims that can't be proven. We have convenient recordings that only show part of the story. We have a man who, by all accounts from everyone except her, is a pillar of his community. Ask yourselves, who is more credible? Then Ramona stood up. She walked over to the evidence table and picked up the stack of photos. These are 53 photographs of injuries spanning 2 years. The prosecution's medical expert testified that the pattern and progression are consistent with ongoing domestic violence. The defense wants you to believe she inflicted these injuries on herself, that she broke her own rib, that she choked herself hard enough to leave finger-shaped bruises. Think about that. Really think about it. What would drive someone to do that? And would a person capable of that level of self-harm really have the presence of mind to fake it so perfectly that multiple medical professionals couldn't tell the difference? She picked up transcripts of the recordings. You heard his voice, his words. Did you really think a piece of paper would stop me? I'll find you again and again and again. The defense claims these were taken out of context. What context could possibly make those words acceptable? What context makes threatening your ex-wife acceptable? She walked over to me. Look at her. Really look. This is a woman who left everything to escape, who lived in shelters, who worked minimum wage jobs, who cut off contact with her family to keep them safe, who moved 6 times in a year, constantly running, constantly afraid. Does that sound like someone with a vendetta? Or does it sound like someone genuinely terrified? She turned back to the jury. The defense wants to convince you that mental health struggles equal dishonesty, that seeking help for depression makes someone a liar, that being afraid makes someone unreliable. But I ask you to consider this. What if her mental health struggles were the result of years of abuse? What if her anxiety, her catastrophic thinking, her inability to hold down a job, what if all of that was the effect of living with someone who terrorized her daily? Wouldn't that explain everything? The jury deliberated for 4 days. 4 days of waiting, of wondering, of trying not to completely lose hope. I stayed in a hotel room with Violet, watching mindless television, unable to eat, unable to sleep. On the 4th day, we got the call. The jury had reached a verdict. The courtroom was packed again, news cameras everywhere. I sat at the prosecution table, my hands twisted together in my lap, trying to breathe normally. The judge entered. We all stood. The jury filed in, their faces unreadable. Has the jury reached a verdict? The judge asked. We have, Your Honor. On the charge of felony assault, how do you find? A pause that lasted forever. Guilty. I felt Ramona's hand squeeze mine. On the charge of felony stalking, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of felony violation of a protective order, guilty. Guilty on all 6 felony counts. Guilty on 7 of 8 misdemeanors. I heard someone crying and realized it was me. Ramona pulled me into a hug while the courtroom erupted around us. Behind us, I heard Devin shouting at his lawyers, claiming incompetence, demanding an appeal. The judge banged her gavel. Mr. Devin, you will have the opportunity to file an appeal. For now, I'm remanding you to custody pending sentencing. Bail is revoked. 2 officers approached Devin. He stood slowly, his face a mask of rage. As they cuffed his hands behind his back, his eyes found mine. For just a moment, I saw pure hatred. Then it was gone, replaced by that same charming smile. This isn't over, he mouthed. But it was. Or at least this chapter was. Sentencing was set for 6 weeks later. The prosecution recommended maximum sentences on all counts to run consecutively. That would mean 20 years in prison. The defense filed 7 different motions. Appeals, requests for a new trial, claims of judicial misconduct. All were denied. On sentencing day, I stood before the court and read a victim impact statement. I'd written and rewritten it a dozen times, trying to capture what those years had cost me. You took my sense of safety, I read, my voice shaking but steady. You made me afraid of every shadow, every sound, every stranger on the street. You cost me time with my father in his final days. You cost me years of my life spent running and hiding, but you didn't break me. I'm still here. I'm still standing, and I will rebuild everything you tried to destroy. Devin's lawyer made a plea for leniency, talked about Devin's contributions to the community, his lack of prior criminal record, his potential for rehabilitation. Devin himself stood and apologized, though I noticed he never actually said what he was apologizing for. The judge listened to everything, then delivered her sentence. 18 years in state prison, no possibility of parole for the first 12 years, permanent restraining order upon release, mandatory anger management and counseling. Mr. Devin, she said, you used your intelligence, your resources, and your position of trust to systematically terrorize another human being. You have shown no genuine remorse and no understanding of the severity of your actions. The sentence reflects the serious nature of your crimes and the lasting harm you've caused. This time when they led him away, he didn't look at me. He kept his eyes straight ahead, his face blank. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Ramona fielded questions while I stood beside her, overwhelmed. This was real. It was actually over. How does it feel? One reporter asked. I thought about all the questions I'd been asked over the past 3 years. How did it feel to be hit by someone who claimed to love me? How did it feel to run for my life over and over? How did it feel to live in constant fear? It feels like I can breathe again, I finally said. The civil suit was dropped the next week, without Devin to pursue it. His lawyers had no interest in continuing. The divorce was finalized a month later. I got the house, though I sold it immediately. Couldn't imagine living there again. I used part of the money to rent a small apartment in a city where no one knew me. Got a job at a bookstore. Started going to therapy twice a week, working through everything I'd survived. Violet moved in with me. We became roommates, both of us rebuilding, both of us learning how to live without fear. She started taking college classes online. I adopted a dog from the shelter, a 3-legged pit bull mix no one else wanted. We named him Warrior. 6 months after the trial, I went back to school. Started working toward a degree in social work. I wanted to help other women like me, women who thought they had no way out. My mom started calling regularly. We talked about Dad, about what I was doing, about her life. Slowly, carefully, We rebuilt our relationship. My sister visited every few months. We'd have dinner, talk about normal things. Sometimes we'd mention the past, but more often, we just lived in the present. A year after the trial, I started dating again, carefully, slowly, testing the waters. The first few times I flinched when a man reached for me too quickly, but he was patient. We took things slow, learned to trust. I testified before a state legislative committee about the failures in the domestic violence protection system, talked about how easy it was for abusers with resources to find their victims, how shelters needed better security, how restraining orders needed better enforcement. Some of my recommendations became law. Small changes, but changes nonetheless. 2 years after the trial, I graduated with my degree. Ramona came to the ceremony. So did the shelter director who'd first helped me. So did Paige, who I'd stayed in touch with. So did Violet, who'd graduated 6 months earlier with a degree in psychology. I got a job working at a domestic violence nonprofit, helping other survivors navigate the legal system, find safe housing, rebuild their lives. Every woman I helped felt like a small victory against everything Devin had tried to do to me. I never forgot what he took from me. The years spent running, the time with my father I'd never get back, the constant fear that had become my normal. But I also never forgot that I survived, that I found the strength to fight back, to stand up in court and tell the truth, to rebuild my life from nothing. 3 years after the trial, I bought a house. Nothing fancy, just a small 2-bedroom with a fenced yard for Warrior. I painted the walls bright colors, hung art, made it mine. I was planting flowers in the front garden when a car I didn't recognize pulled up. My first instinct was to run. That instinct would probably never fully go away. But then Ramona got out, carrying a bottle of wine and a gift bag. "Housewarming present," she said, handing me the bag. "Thought you could use a new welcome mat." I pulled it out. It said "Home Sweet Home" in cheerful letters. "It's perfect," I said. We sat on my porch drinking wine, watching the sunset, talking about cases, about life, about everything we'd both learned. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Fighting back? Going to trial? It would have been easier to just disappear." I thought about that. Sometimes I regret how hard it was, but I don't regret doing it. He needed to face consequences. Other women needed to see that it was possible to fight back and win. You know, he's filed 3 more appeals. I know. And they'll all be denied, just like the others. He writes letters to the prosecutor's office, to the judge, always maintaining his innocence. Of course he does. People like him never accept responsibility. Do you worry about when he gets out? 12 years isn't that long. I used to, but I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago. I'm stronger now, smarter, more prepared. If he comes after me again, I'll handle it. You shouldn't have to. No, but that's life. We handle what we have to handle. 4 years after the trial, I met someone, really met someone. Someone who listened when I talked about my past, who understood why certain things made me uncomfortable, who never pushed, who let me move at my own pace. We got married in a small ceremony, just close friends, my mom and sister, a few people from work. No big white dress, no traditional vows. We wrote our own, promising honesty, respect, and the freedom to always be ourselves. On my wedding day, I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who covered bruises with makeup and apologized for existing, the one who believed love was supposed to hurt. She felt like a stranger now. 5 years after the trial, I started speaking publicly, sharing my story at conferences, at fundraisers, at college campuses. Every time I spoke, women came up to me afterward. Some were currently in abusive situations. Some had escaped. Some were still thinking about leaving. I listened to all of them, gave them resources, phone numbers, advice, reminded them it wasn't their fault, that they deserved better, that escape was possible. Some of them went on to leave their abusers. Some sent me messages years later, thanking me, telling me about their new lives. Each message felt like proof that all the pain had meant something. Devin filed his 8th appeal 6 years after the trial. It was denied in 3 weeks. I stopped checking on his appeals after that, stopped letting him take up space in my thoughts. He was in prison. I was free. That was all that mattered. 7 years after the trial, Violet got engaged. I was her maid of honor. At her wedding, I watched her dance with her partner, both of them laughing, completely at ease. We'd both come so far. "Remember when we first met?" she asked me later that night. "Both of us sitting in that farmhouse jumping at every sound? And now look at us. Yeah, look at us." 8 years after the trial, my mom got remarried. A kind man, a retired teacher. He treated her well, made her laugh. Sometimes I'd watch them together and feel grateful that she got a second chance at happiness. 9 years after the trial, I published a book about my experience. Changed all the names, protected everyone's privacy, but told the truth about what I'd survived and how I'd fought back. It became a bestseller. Suddenly I was doing interviews, appearing on talk shows, being recognized on the street. The attention was uncomfortable at first, but it also meant more women heard my story. More women realized they weren't alone. The book inspired 3 different states to pass stronger domestic violence laws. 10 years after the trial, I was asked to speak at a conference for law enforcement about recognizing signs of domestic violence and taking victims' reports seriously. The auditorium was packed with police officers, judges, lawyers. After my speech, a young officer approached me. "Thank you," she said. "My mom was in a situation like yours. She didn't make it out. But hearing your story helps me understand what she went through. helps me honor her memory by doing this work better. That's when I knew. All the pain, all the fear, all the years of running, they'd led to this. To helping others. To changing systems. To making sure fewer women had to suffer what I'd suffered. 11 years after the trial, Devin sent me a letter. It was forwarded through my lawyer, who called to warn me before I opened it. "You don't have to read it," she said. "I can dispose of it if you want." "No, I'll read it." The letter was 3 pages long, rambling, self-pitying, full of justifications. He claimed he'd found God in prison, that he'd realized the error of his ways, that he wanted my forgiveness. The last paragraph said, "I know I hurt you. I know I was wrong. I pray that someday you can forgive me so we can both move forward in peace." I read it once, then put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. Forgiveness wasn't something I owed him. Peace wasn't something I needed to give him to find it for myself. I'd already moved forward, had already found peace. Without him, without his approval, without his permission. 12 years after the trial, Devin became eligible for parole. The parole board sent me notification, asked if I wanted to submit a statement or appear at the hearing. I wrote a 5-page statement, detailed every way his actions had impacted my life, included testimonials from other women he'd dated before me who'd come forward after the trial, all with similar stories. Ended with a simple request. Keep him in prison for the full sentence. The parole board denied his release, said he showed insufficient remorse and posed a continued risk to public safety. He'd be eligible again in 2 years. 13 years after the trial, my book was adapted into a movie. I consulted on the script, made sure they told the story right, made sure they showed the reality of domestic violence, not some sanitized Hollywood version. The premiere was surreal, watching actors portray the worst moments of my life on a giant screen. But afterward, people came up to me crying, thanking me, telling me their own stories. "I left because of your book," one woman said. "I read it and realized I didn't have to stay, that it was possible to escape. You saved my life." Those words made everything worth it. 14 years after the trial, I was invited to speak at the United Nations about domestic violence as a human rights issue. Me, the woman who'd once hidden in a motel room afraid to turn on the lights, now speaking before world leaders about changing laws and protecting victims. Life was strange. 15 years after the trial, I sat in my living room with my spouse, my dog, and Violet, who'd stopped by for dinner. We were laughing about something stupid, some joke I can't even remember now. And I realized I was happy. Actually, genuinely happy. Not just surviving anymore, but thriving. Devin hadn't broken me. He'd tried, but he'd failed. I'd won. Not because I'd gotten revenge, or because he was in prison, or because my life had turned out better than his. I'd won because I'd refused to let what he did define me, because I'd fought back, because I'd rebuilt, because I'd turned pain into purpose, because I was still here, still standing, still living. And that was the greatest victory of all.